Okay, this is my response to Beautiful, which was sung and I guess even written by Megan Nicole. I don't know that for sure. I know she sang it, but I don't know if she actually wrote it or not. There is actually a problem with this song, but it's not what people think it is. Is it the singing? Nope. She's got a good voice. I would like for her to lean away from auto-tune. I'd rather hear her than some synthetic voice. But aside from that, she's got a good voice. There's no problem with it whatsoever. Now then, is there a problem with the lyrics? Yes. But it's not the problem everybody thinks it is. It is not a problem to sing about a pity party. Everybody has a pity party at some point or another. The problem is there is no solution offered for the pity party throughout the entire set of lyrics. Bingo! But guess who's going to give those solutions now? Alright. The basic premise of the song is this. This young lady, she is in love with this guy. This guy doesn't pay her 2 bits worth of attention. And he is in love with somebody else. And she is trying to figure out some way to woo this guy from this other lady that he's in love with and be a part of her life instead. Okay. That's perfectly understandable. That happens in life. Now, here's the solution. Say, how are you going to get this guy to get away from her and come to me? Here's how. Did you ever think about memorizing some history about your own high school? I mean, you know, I know this probably isn't your real high school, but if some young lady is in a high school situation like this, and she just can't get a guy to fall in love with him, why not just walk up to him and ask him if he knows anything about the history of the high school? If he doesn't, start filling him in. He might be interested. Alright. You looked on the floor, there was a number of balloons on the floor. Didn't you ever think about calculating how much helium was in those balloons? How they gathered the helium and put it in the tank? Where they got the tanks of helium from? You can learn the economic status of the company that manufactured the tanks. You can learn the materials that were used to make those tanks. You can learn how much helium is in those tanks. You can learn how many tanks there were that were shipped to that school to make all those balloons. How about the balloons themselves? Who made them? How sturdy are they? How much helium can each balloon hold? Those are fascinating things to tell a guy. Okay. Alright. What about the bleachers you were sitting on? Okay. What kind of materials were used to make the bleachers? Are those bleachers as sturdy today as they were when they were first installed in the high school? Where did the bleachers come from? Maybe you could talk about the history of the company that made those bleachers, their current economic status, how much the bleachers cost. Did you find out any of this information? No. Did you ever discuss it with this guy? No. Okay. Alright, what about them lockers? I noticed some rust on those lockers. Haven't you wondered how long the lockers have been there? Who made them? What materials they were made out of? Why they're rusting now? Why the paint's all chipped off? What kind of paint was used? I mean, you could be being exposed to lead paint right now and you wouldn't even know it. And getting back to them bleachers, think about this for a second. If those bleachers aren't as sturdy anymore as they were when they were first installed, shoot, one sporting event, there you go. Never thought about that, did you? Never discussed this with this guy. Maybe not even discussed it with the principal. Alright, maybe you can learn the history of locks. Why the locks are padlocks on this thing and not electronic locks. Maybe they have an electrical problem in the school. Maybe they weren't properly wired to have electronic locks on their lockers. Why are the lockers as small as they are? Couldn't they have been bigger? I had bigger lockers when I was in school. Shoot, they were from top to floor. Had a nice little shelf on the top, and everything else went in the bottom. And I guarantee you my lockers were bigger than that. Never thought about that, huh? Okay. Did you ever ask how much the lockers cost the school? Who made them? Nothing. Okay. Did you ever think about looking up the history of ping pong? Maybe figure out who made the ping pong table in the video, or the ping pong paddles, or the balls, or how any of them were made? Those are interesting things to think about and to talk about. Nothing. Okay. Did you ever think about calculating the velocity of the ping pong ball as it's going across the table? How many bounces were going, did you calculate how many times the ball bounced on the table? Okay. All right. Did you ever think about finding out the background story on the fountain that was in the background? Nope. That would have been interesting to not only think about, but to talk about. All right. Did you ever think about how hot that barbecue was getting in order to cook your burgers? Or hot dogs, or whatever the heck they were? What about the history of hamburgers or hot dogs? Where they got the hot dog buns, the hamburger buns? What company made the hamburger buns, the hot dog buns, and the hamburgers and the hot dogs? Maybe it was chicken being grilled. Well, what company made it? Are they a reputable company? What was their earnings for the previous year? None of this. None of this is mentioned in the video. Nothing. These are the kinds of things that will get a guy interested in you. He'll think, man, you got a brain. She's an interesting conversationalist. Dump that other chick and then go to you. Let me tell you something. Girls can be cute, but after a while, when you figure out that they don't know diddly squat, they aren't worth being around. Trust me. Okay. That was a natural gas barbecue. That wasn't charcoal on that thing. Okay. So, history of natural gas. Who made the natural gas? How much natural gas was in that container? Interesting conversation pieces. Okay. What about that swimming pool? Was it made out of marble? Was it made out of cheap materials? Is it going to leak? Just because it's in the ground, solid in the ground, doesn't mean it can't leak. Think about leaks. It can crack. Okay. How much chlorine is in the water? Because they use chlorine to clean out the water. Okay. And how much water is being held in that swimming pool? That'd be an interesting question. How clean is the water? Never answered. Okay. Alrighty. Did you ever think about investigating the type of trees and the plants that are all around that swimming pool and all around that area? That would have been a very interesting conversation. Oh, that's a spruce tree, or that's a maple tree, or that's some kind of other tree. Hey, that's a cherry tree. You could be thought of as a horticulturalist. Oh. Okay. Never thrown around a football. You could learn the history of football. You could figure out who made the football. The company that made the football, what was their earning revenue in the previous year? How profitable of a company are they now? Do they make their footballs out of cheap material, or do they make it out of real good solid material? How much did it cost for him to buy the football? All right. What about the DJ? Did you meet the DJ? Did you learn anything about the DJ? Maybe you could go to this guy and say, hey man, that's a cool DJ. This guy has been doing this and so on and so forth. Maybe you can tell him some stories. The thing is, if you learn all this stuff and start presenting it to this guy, and this guy shows not the slightest bit of interest, you don't want to marry him anyway. Why? Because if he doesn't think about things like this now, what makes you think he's going to think about things that you're going to need him to think about in the future? What is he, a bum? Let me tell you something. Good looks do fade over time. And what's left? Right here. And if you have nothing but the most boring guy on the face of this earth sitting right next to you while you're married to him, and knowing you can't get rid of this guy, well, you could if you wanted a divorce, but divorce is even worse than marriage. Trust me. You can have a situation just as bad in divorce as you can in marriage. Save yourself the grief. If this guy does not take the slightest bit of interest in you after you presented all those details to him, he is not worth your time. Find somebody else. I guarantee you somebody's going to find what you're saying interesting, and that's the kind of person that will stay with you the rest of your life. And you'll have just this constant learning experience for the rest of your natural life. There are times to be a little less intelligent, then there are also times to really be smart. And if this guy takes an interest in all the facts you've dug up, then he'll take an interest when it's even more important. A sick kid, a job situation, problems with the house, that kind of thing. When that occurs, there you go. So, like I said, I'm not criticizing the singer, I'm not criticizing the music, I'm criticizing not so much the lyrics themselves, but the incompleteness of the lyrics. You say, hey, I was having a pity party, so I went out and I learned all this stuff, and then I presented it to this guy. Now you say, well, how am I going to remember all this stuff? You learn how to speed read. You speed read the memory book by Harry Lorraine. Right out here. Where's this? There it is. And once you do that, you come over to my channel and you start learning all the stuff I've got on there. And I guarantee you, once that's done, you're going to read faster, you're going to memorize faster, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, and on top of that, you will become one of the most interesting conversationalists of all time. And that will get you a lot closer to the person you really should be falling in love with. Now you say, well, what about guys? They fall in love with girls and these girls don't pay any attention to them. Will it work the same way? You bet. Actually, my thought on this would be, if you learn all this stuff and you go to this guy and he still doesn't care about you, go to the DJ, fall in love with him. You'll have a much better life, trust me. Well, that's all I've got to say on this video. I hope you found this rather enlightening. I know I did. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.